and welcome to the Makers Studio. We have a fantastic lineup for you today, including our very special guest, Dionne Swift. She's a textile artist and she paints with stitches. She'll be showing us the whole process, demonstrating for us today from start to finish. Also joining us today is Valerie Nesbitt. She is one of the UK's finest quilters and patchworkers, and YouTube sensation as well. And also Jayne Brogan, who is a Janome tech expert and educator. Let's go meet the makers. Hello everybody, thank you so much for coming today. It's great to see you all. Dionne, let's start with you then. What are you going to be demonstrating today?
Well, I brought a lot of stuff with me, plenty of colour here, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the whole idea of starting a piece of work. People get quite daunted by how to start a piece of work, how to come up with ideas, and I use sketchbooks. I use a lot of sketchbooks, and this is just a small collection, and I draw. I draw from real life. I go out, sit in a street, sit in a field, something like that, and take my box of colours with me and create work. And then I take that work back to the studio, review what I do, and hone in. Certain pieces kind of speak to you. So I focus on those, and you can see here I've gradually translated this one into stitch. But how do you start? So I would put out all my threads, and I'd kind of audition threads up to see what colours worked best with this collection. Now every time I do this, I've got a different selection of threads, because I use some of them up. If I'm using heavier threads, they get used up really quickly. So I haven't got the same threads every time. So every time I come to look at this particular drawing, and I'm going to redo this one again today, it will be different. I love that because it's kind of a different day, it's a different approach. I've got a different attitude, got different threads. So this mix that I bring to a piece of work varies on every occasion. And I'm going to pull together a series of threads that I see. Today I see these colours in this piece of work. Tomorrow I might see different colours, but we can see these greens in here. I really like the warm colours in this piece. So yeah, I'm going to just work different colours into this, and like I say, it would be different on every occasion. I might have a bit of a sparkly day and add a bit of sparkle in. Might have a bit of a shiny day, add a bit of sheen in there, metallic-y tones. Gather all these threads together so that I don't have to keep leaving the sewing machine, coming to find something new. What I am looking for though in the threads are lots of different weights. So I've got hand embroidery thread, I've got 50 weight cotton, I've got some other threads over here. I quite like this one. These, nice and shiny. It's lovely and shiny. This is a Wonderful, not 12 weight, 8 weight rayon. So for the uninitiated, the smaller the number, the thicker the thread. This is 8 weight. This one is 50 weight, so this is thinner than this.
And if I may, I'm fascinated by the fact that most people look at those as hand threads, but you're going to use them on the sewing machine.
I'm going to use them on the sewing machine. I'm going to couch with them and work upside down. Lovely. Okay. So it's kind of invisible, blind sewing. I can't really see what I'm doing while I'm doing it, and I like the unknown quality. I like the unknown element to the work. There's discovery every time I do something. I don't always know how it's going to turn out. Wow. And I like that because then it's a surprise and I'm learning something on every occasion.
So would you put your heavier threads into the bobbin then to use it?
Yeah. They go into the bobbin, and I'll show you in a minute how I'm going to hand wind some of those on. So I've got a collection of threads here, and I think we're ready to go over to the sewing machine.
Let's go.
Okay.
So we're in the Makers Studio, and we've already heard from our expert Dionne about how she works from sketchbooks and doing your initial artwork from nature, from anything that you observe in nature. You've picked your threads. I said in my intro that you paint with stitches. So how do you go from this to this?
Well, on a sewing machine, and it could be any domestic sewing machine, I need to drop the feed dogs on the machine. I've got a special foot on this machine. It is a free motion convertible quilting foot. Big long name for a small foot. And it basically helps to hold the fabric in place while I sew, because I haven't got a conventional foot on there anymore. Drop the teeth so there's nothing pulling fabric through. So I end up having to be the movement mechanism for the fabric underneath the needle. Other than that, I've set up the machine pretty much as normal, threaded as per manufacturer's instructions. And I've got a large needle in here. I like to just keep the same needle in. This one is a purple tip, size 14, for those who are particularly interested. And that's got a larger eye, and it helps me to thread the machine a lot easier, because I do need to swap to different specs.
I love that you said that you become the movement, you're moving with the material. And I think that's really interesting, because you're working from your landscapes, the movement, whether it's water or trees moving. So
I'm very much part of this process. So I've picked the sewing machine that I really like, and it's a big, heavy-bodied sewing machine. It's lovely and solid. I've picked my thread, picked the colours, picked the quality of thread, which is really important. It's always a good quality thread that I aim for. This is the Wonderfill thread that I've got today. And all these different elements become kind of part of an orchestra. And I kind of just guide them along. I'm not a dictator of how this is going to turn out. I have no idea how it's going to turn out. I don't want to know how it's going to turn out. Otherwise, it becomes really boring. I'd feel like I was painting by numbers, and I'm not. I'm on a, it sounds a bit corny, I'm on a voyage of discovery, but I want to learn all the time. So now I will learn how this works, how these different elements that I've put together in my orchestra, how they kind of combine, and how I can best get the best sound out of them. So my fabric, talking about sound, I'm using wool here, and because it makes a softer sound, so when the needle goes through, it's lush. It's not, if I were using calico, it makes a noise. You can hear it piercing. With wool, it's gentle.
So this is your favourite fabric to work with?
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. Ridiculously expensive, but it's so worth it for me. I use this particular thread in my bobbin. This is called Invisifill, and it's normally a quilting thread. It's very, very fine. Remember the numbers? This is 100 weight. So some of my thick hand stitch threads, they're 8 weight, very thick. Bigger number, thinner thread. So this is 100 weight. This is going to go into the machine underneath, and move that out the way for now. Then I can put next lovely part of my orchestra, this square hoop. So normally an embroidery hoop would be round, this one's squarer, and you can see that here I have covered the hoop, which gives the cloth extra grip. If I didn't have this, it would slide about, and I want it to be really drum-like. Yeah. I've got to use this hoop to manoeuvre the fabric, and if it's kind of floppy inside, it's not going to work. So the other lovely thing, it's got this dip here, which means I can slide
it's like
under
a drop
there.
curb, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Exactly drive my car
like
onto my drive.
Yeah. You'll notice as well, this foot goes up and down seamlessly because I've got a knee lifter here. So I want to have two hands on the hoop. I'm keeping my fingers out the way so I don't get them trapped underneath the needle. And then I can lift up and down, release the tension with my knee. I've trained my right knee to do this, and I've trained my left foot to use the pedal. People normally use their right foot on the pedal, foot pedal.
So why the other way around?
Because
then?
then I can't move my knee, my right knee, and do the pedal with the right foot. So
Got you.
other
Right.
way round. And I had a knee operation, and that I trained it to go that way so I could still sew. So I need to see this picture while I'm working. I'm not drawing it out on here with a pencil first and trying to copy the lines, because then the lines become really kind of static and flat. So I just go for it. And if it's not exactly the same, that's fine. It's kind of a bonus. But I want to observe what I see there. It kind of goes into the eye, brain computes it, tells the hands what to do. And every day that would be different, which is great. And I'm kind of training my powers of observation all the time. It's the same powers of observation I use when I'm in the landscape, in a cityscape drawing.
You said that you never really know what you're going to get.
No, it's great.
You have a plan, you have the reference here.
Yep.
And for some people watching this, that might absolutely terrify them, not knowing what they're going to end up with.
I
But
know.
what are the benefits of not knowing where you're
Learning.
Yeah.
Learning, being surprised, the work always being fresh, being excited. Downsides are I can't do it every day because
It's a one-off.
I've got to have a certain energy. I've got to be in the right headspace. I've got to have got out of bed on the right side. So my mood is part of the orchestra.
Is it about letting go as well? Kind of taking your hands off the safety rails and
A
just
little
letting
bit,
go?
yeah. I mean, I trust my machine, my threads. I've got to trust myself to let go. But I trust my process. Time gives you that. You know, that is it 20,000 hours you need to become an expert? I think I've done 20,000 and a bit more. So, yeah, I feel that I can go for it.
So trust your equipment.
Trust the
And go
things
for
that
it.
you've invested in. You know, it's worth having a good machine that is really up to the job. It's worth spending the money on good threads that aren't going to make you frustrated because they break all the time. Things like that. It really pays off. My fabric, it sounds delicious. So, and it feels nice. I love the feel of wool. You know, I like to wear wool or silk. Don't like to wear synthetics so much. And it's all part and parcel of the kind of ethos of what I do.
I'm really keen to hear your orchestra then, Dionne. Let's hear this.
Let's hope it sounds okay today. So I'm going to just start by knowing where the lower thread is. It's already been cut off, so it's very short. But if you can pull it up and hang on to it. And then I've got my eye on a corner here. So I'm going to spend 50% of my time with my eyes there, 50% here. And I need to move my hands straight away. I'm the stitch length on the machine because the teeth are down. The speed at which I move my hands in comparison to the speed of the needle, it's a bit like this, that creates the stitch length, okay? So if I want a really long stitch, I would move my hands very quick. Shall we see how that goes?
Let's go.
Okay.
I'm counting.
So following the lines on the machine. I kind of have to backtrack on myself occasionally, making this blue building at the top. And if you watch my eyes, they kind of flick from place to place. So from sketchbook, there's a red car here at the front. And it doesn't matter if I kind of go over myself a few times, because this is just a first layer. There's a car here, some shading on the car. It's kind of quite important that I'm working from a drawing that I've done, from a place that I've been to, because then I do know that red blob at the front is a car. and I know then how to handle that car and what to do with it.
Dionne, that is amazing, and it actually looks like your drawing. I think if I did that, it would just look really, really messy. But it's like continual drawing, isn't it?
Yes, it's a continuous. It's called continuous line, really. I mean, the thread is that continuous line, and I have to kind of. Oh, it's a thing called blind drawing as well. This is drawing, that is drawing. There's a muscle memory in my hands from that.
That's incredible.
That I can kind of transport over. And honestly, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And I'm not scared of the machine. And I know that some people, they start scared, but honestly, after a few hours of speed sewing, you kind of just zone into it, and then it becomes second nature. And a little blip or a wobble somewhere doesn't worry you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think people would be worried about going wrong, but
if
it's
you haven't got a set image in your head of a set outcome, then there's no wrong in there.
And you're the artist, only you know.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah.
It's all about the end result.
No, it's all about the process.
It's all about the process.
It's all about the process. End result doesn't matter.
Okay.
So if I was worried about the end result, then I could panic. But if I enjoy the journey, then the result is just where I get to. It's less important than the atmosphere of this, the sound of this, and whether or not I'm enjoying it. And if it all sounds nice, so if there was a thread about to break or the machine needed oil or something like that, it would sound just slightly jarring, and the whole experience wouldn't be as great for me.
How do you know when you've finished?
Tricky.
Because you could just go on and on and on.
You could. You know, sometimes I end on a broken thread, or the thread, a certain colour runs out, and I say, okay, serendipity, something is telling me in my little mini universe, it's telling me that, yeah, you're done there.
Wow.
So, pretty happy with this at this stage, although there's a few more bits I could fill in.
So as you were saying earlier, Dionne, you work from nature, Italy, the UK.
Yeah.
Where would you say is most inspirational for your artwork?
Generally travelling and finding new places. So recent pieces there's a collection called 50 at 50. I did 50 pieces for my 50th year. And we did as much travelling as we could that year in Morocco, across Italy. And I do love Italy. We have a house there, and so I do get to spend a lot of time there, which is just lovely. I love the weather, I love the heat, I love the food. Pace of life is definitely more relaxed. And I think the colours there, I mean, I've done quite a bit of work from Burano, an island in Venice, and the colour in Burano is beautiful. All the houses are painted different colours, so it's really nice. And it's helped more colour flood into my work. And I think we're ready to put some colour into this now. So what I'm going to do, snip off that thread. I've got a looping, floating thread here that I'm going to snip off.
So do you always start with that colour thread when you're doing your layouts?
Sometimes a grey. I mean, I put black on today because it's easier for everybody to see. Sometimes grey, but I'd like to plot it out. And normally with my drawings in the sketchbook, I've used graphite first and then I've gone in with colour, usually. So I follow a similar process, use a graphite-y colour or a black to start off with, and then fill in with colour. And to fill in, what I'm going to do is pop this out, and I'm actually going to turn the piece of fabric over, loosen that a little bit, so you can see the back. Sometimes I just like the back. I mean, sometimes the back doesn't look as neat as this, I have to say. So tighten it up, and then I will need a screwdriver on here. You would be surprised how handy a screwdriver is when sewing for tightening just about everything.
That's a great tip.
Got to have a screwdriver at hand. So I've got a pair of snips and a screwdriver.
Perfect.
They're my key tools, and sewing specs. And then I've already put a few on here. So I've got some spare spool cases, and I've wound onto here some heavy embroidery thread, and it's going to kind of tone in with some of the pinks that I see in the houses here. So I'm back to front now. So I've got a mirror image. So pink house, pinky orangey house is here. This salmony colour is over here. And swap the Invisifil for this one. Now here, I don't know if you can quite see this, but rather than going through the thread cutting mechanism, I don't want to do that with this thicker thread, but I will pick it up, and I'm going to swap my top thread. It's important because we are going to see, go for this one, we're going to see this thread even though we flip it around.
Okay.
You've got to think about colour mixing now. So we're going to see a bit of this kind of lilac-y pink with a bit of this pale peachy colour, if I can just get the end.
So they're going down at the same time, those two colours?
Yeah, so this is the back of the thread, the back of the piece of work at the moment. Get rid of that bit.
How important is it to get a good colour match when it comes to your original drawing?
I let the drawing guide my colour combinations, but not dictate. So again, it's part of the colour combinations are part of the orchestral noise, and I kind of see this aspect. Just picking up that lower thread there, so it comes up. I see this aspect like tactile pointillism. I'll show you what I mean in a minute, because I'll just do this little bit and then turn it over, and hopefully you'll see. If I can, I'm going to pull up that lower thread and just pull the end through a little bit. I don't want to pull too much through because there's not much wound on that bobbin, because the thread's so thick you don't get much on there. But we'll do a few stitches. Now I do have to move at this point, and I'm also going to loosen the top tension a fraction. I was at normal tension about 4. I'm going to go down to about 2, see how it looks. But I must move. I'll just get those out of the way. If you don't move your hands and you just keep stitching in one spot, you do end up in a big jumble. Now, this is, in my mind, like getting a big paintbrush, and threads run out already, getting a big paintbrush and putting down a big stroke of colour.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that colour looks like, and I don't know what the stroke is like until I turn over, because I'm currently on the back.
Wow.
So,
that's beautiful.
very quickly, I can put down a big swathe of colour. It's not completely the lilac-y pink. It's got little flecks of this colour in it. So in that way I can mix several colours, several tones together, and I can affect them myself. So I am not using Wonderfill 236, I'm using Dionne's colour. And
It's
for
an
me,
amazing
that's
effect.
really, really important.
It looks like brickwork. It's a building. It looks like brick. Or
Yeah,
interpret however, but yeah,
And
that's a fantastic
as-
tactile.
As the
finish.
piece goes on, I can look at this and think, okay, tone's wrong. I can add more colour over the top. Just as I would do if it were a painting, I could review and say, needs a bit more of this, needs a bit more of that. Looking closely at the work, there's actually big white streaks down there. I can add those in.
So it's multi-layers, your work.
Sometimes I put 5 layers on. Yeah, yeah.
So do you mind if I ask, Dionne, do you use the blue dot bobbin case when you're doing that work, or you've got the standard one in there?
It depends. I sometimes see how it goes. I do swap and change,
Yeah.
just depending on how the
On how
threads
it's- yeah.
work.
Yeah.
It's another one of those things that's in the orchestra,
Yeah.
and if it's not singing well,
Then you'll change
I'll-
it over,
I'll
yeah.
swap over. Yeah, it varies. But I tend to, very often, because I can use an ordinary bobbin case when I'm using the Invisifill,
yeah.
because it's so fine, it reduces the tension because of
Yes.
its thinness.
Yes.
Don't know another word for that,
Yeah,
thinness.
'cause it's fine, yeah.
Because it's fine. With the thicker thread, sometimes I'll bypass the tension altogether.
Yes, I've done that in the past, yeah. Yeah.
I have to play it by ear.
And just
Play
see
it
how
by ear.
different threads work with different bobbin cases.
And I
yeah.
used to test it out on the corner before I started.
Yeah.
And now I test it out on the piece of work, and if I don't like it, I cover it over.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
And you can still see a remnant of it underneath.
And would you use, I know we've got the convertible foot there, but some people probably won't have that. Would you use a normal darning foot, free motion foot, the hoppy foot? A lot of people call it.
The hoppy bouncy foot.
Yeah,
You can.
yeah.
I don't like it.
No.
I really like the glideability
I see
of
I
this
quilt
one.
and I love that foot for, say, the glideability
Yeah.
of it. It's just very smooth to work with, isn't it?
I find it difficult to go back, to be
Yeah.
honest. Love this
Yeah.
foot. I love the fact that if I put that down there, you might be able to see.
You can
Can
alter
you
the
see
foot
Faye,
height
it
of your
goes,
work.
it goes
yeah.
up and down?
Yes.
Yeah.
If
yeah.
I change that there. So as I build up more layers of thread, the piece of work gets really bulky.
It
So
has to go up.
it has to go
Yeah.
up. So I can still smoothly
So clever.
glide. It's lovely. So
Yes, yeah.
this helps. It helps me to be more fluid when I'm sewing. So no, I stick with that one.
So Dionne, we're a little bit further along with the process now. Same reference,
Yes.
but a little bit further on. So what are we going to do next?
Well, I've set this up now to show you kind of another little technique that I use, a colour mixing technique again. I showed you the very textural machine couching working upside down. Now I know that a lot of people have lots of these very shiny threads because we're all kind of magpies and we buy lots of shiny threads, and they can be quite tricky to use. They're also quite thin, so on a larger piece of work they don't cover the area very well. But this is my little tip and technique. I'm going to move these out of the way. I've kind of selected colours that work with my composition again, and I think we'll use these two. They're quite different from one another, but what I'm hoping is when these two colours blend together, they'll give me something around this kind of zone.
Kind of
roughly.
salmon-y pink.
Yeah, and it can go on top of here and kind of tone this more towards that. Not exactly the same, but in that kind of realm. But what I'm going to do is use both of my thread holders here. And if you haven't got two thread posts, let's just caught round the edge. You can buy a thread stand, pop it at the back of the machine, and run two threads together. I'm going to hold them both together and run them through. Make sure the tension is up, so my knee is pushing to the right to lift the tension up. This is when I could do without a camera looking at me while I thread.
Let's see how quickly you do this. I bet you do it pretty quickly.
Pressure, pressure, pressure. We'll persevere.
You were saying that silky, glittery threads are trickier to use. So what do you mean by that?
They slide off, they get jumbled up, they, like here, they're going to get caught around this in a minute.
So they're already trouble, aren't they?
they're just slippy.
Right,
They're slippy, and but they're very seductive, so we do love them. And what they also do is because they're shiny, they contrast with the matte qualities that I've already put on here. I've got a matte wool. I mean, look how shiny my nails are against the wool. They stand out all the better. This will also do the same. It creates a contrast. It catches the light. The wool absorbs the light. These do the opposite. So they're a nice highlight in a piece of work.
So all of these materials are working with each other.
They're bouncing off one another. Part of the orchestra again. You know, there's different volumes and different harmonies that are created. Sometimes clashes, and visually they can be a really good thing. So, kind of looking at this area here, I'm going to swing round a little bit. This machine is great because I have got loads. Hang on, let's just get going and snip those bits off. I've got loads of space in the throat of this machine to be able to swing round in any direction and kind of manoeuvre in any way I want. I could also have a much bigger hoop and do a bigger piece. Get slightly more restricted depending on how large you go. But this size hoop, it's 25 centimetres. I can swing it in any direction. So this throat space here is a real benefit. And I'm going to mix these colours together with one another. So the kind of variegated red and the pink are mixing with each other, and they're mixing with what's already on the cloth already, the kind of peachy colour, and the white loops that are there. So I've got 4 colours, 4 qualities mixing. And actually, what I also want to do with, going to push that down a little bit. What I want to do with shiny threads is to try and make my stitches a little bit longer than normal. So that means faster hands, okay? If the stitches are longer, the thread lies on the surface, it doesn't bend as often, so it looks shinier.
Right.
It's about getting the best out of that component of the orchestra. If I take a little section down here, you can see that better. So all the threads are going in the same direction, which gives them the best possible chance to catch the light. If I go the other way now, over here, I don't know how much we can actually pick up on camera. No, I know it's not exactly where it is on the picture, but the sheen and the colour mixing kind of will catch the light in different ways and give a different impression. Now I can use that in lots of different places across my composition.
That's fantastic.
Okay, so I'll continue. I'll stick with these for now. Bit up there.
Dionne, we're further down the process now, and I know this is an impossible question to answer, but how long does it take you to finish one piece?
It's incredibly difficult to say. It varies from piece to piece, it varies on my mood, but I would need a full day working on a piece this size, really, to feel like I could do a bit of work, leave it, contemplate it, view it from a distance, go back to it, deal with broken threads, all that kind of thing, you know, all the unexpected. But I would put layers and layers on, and that would be the next stage, and keep reviewing them. Sometimes I put things aside, leave them in a drawer for a few weeks, and wait and see how I feel about them after that.
So you'll have a few projects going at the same time? That's
Often.
Yeah?
Yeah, often. If I'm frustrated with one thing, I leave it. I don't kind of keep working on it and wind myself up. I leave it be. Go and work on something else.
Well, we're going to see the finished product in a few minutes' time. How long would it take to do something like this?
Oh,
behind me?
the big
'Cause that is
piece.
epic.
Thank you. That took me weeks and weeks. I mean, I needed physiotherapy after that because of the kind of the repetitive strain. It did take a long, long time. And it's based on another piece of work, and but it's the largest I've done in free machine embroidery, and all those undulations that you see there, they're part and parcel of the tensioning of the stitches on the cloth. So it's kind of to do with honesty to the materials and the process. I could have made it flat, but I would have had to force it flat. The thread, the tension, wanted that fabric to curl, and I've listened to it, and I've let it do its thing.
But it demonstrates that you can work, you know, very small scale up to very big pieces of
and
artwork.
actually there are some small pieces that you've got, Val. There are some little brooches there as well. Absolutely. So some little dinky pieces. Sometimes I need a quick bit of gratification, and there are small pieces. I don't like putting my work into any kind of print or reproduction. So smaller, more affordable pieces come in the form of small stitch brooches.
Well, it's been absolutely fascinating watching you work.
Thank
Should
you.
we go and join our other experts and look at the final piece? We've joined our other experts now. Wow, what did you think of the demonstration?
That was absolutely fabulous. You want to go home and start stitching now when you see something like that.
It's amazing. I've
You
never
certainly
seen
do.
anybody
Yeah.
work like that before. Valerie, what did you
Well, I was
think?
going to say, it's the speed you do it.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I'm a free motion quilter, but that machine was going.
Yeah, I like to have my
as it were.
foot on
Yeah.
the floor
Yeah.
and go for it. There's that energy that the whole process gives me.
No, quite amazing.
It's an adrenaline thing.
Quite lovely, quite lovely.
I have to ask you, which is your favourite machine?
I love this one, which is the Janome 700.
Yeah.
But I also have an HD9, and that goes a little bit faster.
Yeah, I've got those are two
Yeah.
machines I actually own at home, and I wouldn't part with either
No.
of them.
No,
So
no.
they're so
They
robust.
are metal bodied and solid,
Yeah.
and that's what I need.
Yeah.
I need
They
something
can take
that's
all
not going
kinds
to
of
wiggle about.
everything.
And they've got a big throat, so I can move around easily.
Valerie, would you ever consider working that quickly with your own
Well,
work?
yes, I think so. I think it would taken the scariness out of it, if I'm honest. Yes.
You can start slow.
Yeah.
You know, if you have the speed control up to full, and then just control the speed
Yes.
with your foot.
Yes, it tends to be
Yeah.
the way I was taught.
A
yes.
good tip is to, because you've got muscle memory in your hand already, is to practice by stitching your signature.
Yes.
You've already got that. You know that one really well. So
joined up writing.
joined up writing. Joined
I can do
joined
that,
up
I can do
writing. Do
that.
rows and rows of joined up
I
writing.
just do it fairly slowly. That's the thing.
You gradually
Yes, you
speed
get the
up.
speed.
You
Yeah.
speed up.
No.
Yeah.
Lovely. It's
Do
lovely.
you find as well, if you actually sketch the basic design out first, again, the muscle memory will be there with you? I mean, like most people, I am terrified of a blank piece of paper and a pencil going, just draw something. But do you feel that if you did that, it might help a
So
little bit?
I like to start teaching students with something called continuous line drawing and blind drawing. So you look at your subject, say it's these reels of thread. You don't look at your paper, you're just looking at your subject. Can't see the drawing, but the information in the eye is telling your hand what to do. That's kind of the process that you need on the machine. So I would always draw on paper first. So continuous line.
Go
I
back.
wouldn't draw on the fabric though. and try and trace around that, because that makes you quite stilted.
Is that, I mean, that would be quite tempting, I think, for anybody trying to replicate what you're trying to do is to sketch it out on the fabric first.
I agree, that is tempting, but you put pressure on yourself to follow that line.
Yes, agreed.
And so you kind of, if I've gone off line a little bit, that's when you feel you've gone wrong. But if you haven't got lines there, you're kind of freewheeling a bit, and knowing that you're not trying to make this, you're not trying to make an exact replica of the drawing. Definitely, I wouldn't dream of starting with a photograph. Say I have got a photograph of this scene. I wouldn't put the photograph in front of me and say, right, I'm going to stitch that, because the camera has done this amazing photographic job. I can't do that in stitch.
I suppose it's simplifying it, isn't it?
Yes, taking it through different simplifying, slightly abstracting stages, so that you're giving yourself a manageable job rather than an overwhelming task.
Well, let's look at the finished artwork. Wow, it's magnificent, and yeah, that says Italy to me. It's super.
It's the warmth it's the warmth of the people, but it's the warmth of a summer evening, sun's going down, reflecting off the buildings. And this is one of my 50 at 50 pieces. So a couple of years ago when I turned 50, I made 50 pieces of work based on travels, based on experiences that year. And then sadly, because of COVID, they haven't really had much of a viewing in the UK as yet. They've been on exhibition in Australia, but not in the UK. But this is one of my favourites, for sure.
I can see why.
Valerie, does travel inspire your work?
Well, I have to be honest and say I have never ventured into this artistic world. I am very much a traditional patchworker and quilter. But the interesting thing about the drawing is that translates from quilting, because that muscle memory, and if you're going to do that free motion, you'll kind of, most of us stand in the shower kind of doing this with the loopy things, you know.
I think, Dionne, the take-home message from today is be brave and trust your equipment and the thread as well.
Yeah, you can't go wrong if you haven't got a kind of clear vision of your outcome. Then you can't be disappointed by what you create, because you've got nothing to kind of compare it with. So anything you produce is a great learning experience. You've developed in some way, which is really important.
And I loved the bit earlier on where you said you turn it over and it's a bit of a surprise.
Oh, I love the surprise.
But it's a good surprise.
I like a surprise, don't we all?
Does it give you more confidence using different colours and mixing different colours with the machine?
Over the last couple of years, I have put a lot more colour into my work. This large piece is an exception. This is called Murmurations. It's a whole series of birds. Every stitch is a bird, kind of swirling around. And there is hidden colour in it. There's delicate colour in it. But my travels really have given me colour. Prior to that, there was a lot of monochrome and a lot of black and white. Again, based on travels, but I think Morocco and Burano just really umphed it with the colour, to be honest.
I think we're all a bit scared of colour, aren't we, at times, about putting it out there.
Do you know what, it's easier to start with monochrome, for sure. Have a limited palette and see where that takes you, and gradually add a few colours in. So maybe, I think there's some in here, well, they kind of go a bit yellowy. So there's yellows and blacks, creams and blacks. That led me into golds and blacks. If you see, I very rarely use a really bright white paper, because that's quite scary. It glares back at you. My fabric is cream. It's not bright white. That kind of helps. It's softer and it's not so.
And if you weren't using the wool fabric, what would you recommend for people to sort of start? Because that's quite an expensive way to practice.
Calico is fine.
A heavy calico, quite a heavy calico.
Even heavy calico is quite tightly woven, so I'd go medium.
I'd
go medium. Be fine. It's good for practicing on, or scraps. It's you know what you've got around. Practicing is practicing. I mean, some people also think that when we were at school, we had to do lots of exercises. You had to do lots of practicing of essay writing, practicing of maths exercises. The same is true when you're learning any new skill. Yeah. You need to do
practice.
Yeah, we
repetition.
Handwriting practice on a Friday with a fountain pen.
Similar kind of thing. Similar kind of thing. So it's not sit down, do it once, thread's broken, throw the towel in. You've got to stick at it a little bit.
And it's just persevere, isn't it? And enjoy it, I think, as well.
I think it's a really good idea to go on a class, go on a workshop with somebody, and they, an expert can be with you and say, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Maybe loosen that bit of tension.
And it is setting the machine sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Different bits and pieces.
Yeah. So ask an expert.
Dionne, thank you so much for today. Thank you very much as well, Jayne and Valerie. I hope everybody's felt inspired after watching today. Thank you for joining us in the Maker Studio.